graduate degree, that's their master's degree. There is 65% of women obtain their postgraduate degree, which is a doctorate degree academically, not just an honorary doctorate, but going to get it academically. So that means what? Sisters are back in school full time. Not only that, but Black women are overrepresented in what? In the healthcare industry. And guess what industry they're getting the degrees in, y'all? We're getting our degrees in law, health, and hold on, the last one is what I love, public policy, which means we are revving up to do what? Run for office. So Black women are starting to have a different agenda, and we are starting to apply ourselves and not just make it a conversation piece. And so it may look like we have less employment, but we're also setting ourselves up to have much more of a future than we would have ever had in the past. Black women are also starting to have kids in their 40s versus back in the day. There was a big, I don't want to say epidemic, but epidemic of Black women having kids in their teenage years, which was then, not allowing them to go on and create this future. So being that they are having kids later, that means what? They're becoming more career driven. We are career driven women who are saying we will create and build before we go and have a family so that our kids are born into equity and not into deficit. I am proud of us sisters. Go sisters, go Black women. I see you, I love you, and I am you, and I appreciate it.
Women are creating a future of leadership, opportunity, and empowerment.
Hey, to that sentiment, I say good luck with that shit. I understand the whole building thing, but we've been going over this for the last couple of weeks. I don't understand why it is that Black women are taught that having a man, having a family is going to be a hindrance to their lives, when everybody else sees it as an asset, a benefit. This is why you see the epidemic of them being single. I didn't hear her mention any of the stats of, the lowest marriage rates, period, or anything like that. She didn't mention any of that part. She's just talking about how, they're having women later. People don't understand how expensive those procedures are, and it's not practical for your average person. So there probably is a subset of women who will be successful at that, but it's absolutely nothing realistic to aim for. I think it's silly for that to and then you have to also think about it. Once women are of that age, once you start waiting around until your 40s, your pool shrinkens, right? And it's for two reasons, because women of that status tend to be annoying when it comes to dating. It is what it is. And secondly, they become less desirable. It's no secret that women fall off after a while. Men do too, but if you look at the numbers, after 35, you're talking about a lot of issues. It's not a good look. It's a really stupid philosophy. And if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. But I think it's shameful for us to encourage Black women on a path that's destined to fail, extremely likely to fail. I didn't hear any numbers about success rates from her, and there's a reason for that.
I think
Yeah, she didn't even talk about she talked about how they're getting all these degrees, but she didn't talk about the student loan debt, how big the student loan debt they have going on. She didn't talk about how majority get degrees that really like in arts and things like that. And then she didn't talk about how um the single mother household rate has become ever since they chose careers over marriage, because all the stats that she mentioned in the beginning, they have not been helpful to the community. The community is not better in any way when it comes to family, and we know family is the foundation of building a community. Man and woman with kids at home, because it's more of separation. They get the degrees to be independent of men. They don't get the degrees to join and build generational wealth.
that's a beautiful thing. Uh, I think that a part of the reason that a lot of women feel like that is their first and foremost priority is just based on the way we were raised as kids. A lot of times in the Black household, whether you're raised in a two-parent home, actually, I feel like it's kind of a little bit more prevalent if you're raised in a two-parent home than it is if you're raised in a single mother home. Little girls are told like, don't worry about a boy. You don't need a boy. Don't get distracted by a boy. Um, go to school, go to school, go to school. And culturally speaking, we push that narrative on our children, and men protect their daughters so harshly from other men throughout their entire adolescence. And then when those little girls grow up, we have the same men turning around and looking at their wives and saying, like, well, why aren't I your first priority? But it's because a man also told her, don't don't make a man your first priority. Make your
I mean, I agree. Yeah, they tell them to make career their first priority and not make the man their first priority. But somehow they keep making babies with men. So how are you gonna tell me they told you not to make a man your first priority, but somehow you can have 3 kids with 3 different men? That doesn't make any sense.
career your first priority. And I'm not trying to necessarily place blame, but I think what happens in that particular aspect is men are kind of talking out of both sides of their mouths because they don't ever think that their little girls are going to grow up and be somebody's wife, and you don't see your wife as somebody's little girl, but they're synonymous. With that being said, I think a woman that goes to college and puts her career first also is super important. um, it's great to be goal oriented and driven, and I don't understand why particularly it's only a bad thing when a woman is that. I think that a lot of times we as a people have spent um, time saying, okay, we would like to be looked at fairly and equally, right? So then a conversation started a few years ago about, well, what do women bring to the table? So then a bunch of women started saying, let me go get some stuff to bring to the table, since the men are telling us, what do we bring to the table? And then women started saying, well, now I bring a PhD, I bring a bachelor's, I bring a car, I bring a house. And then men started saying, that doesn't matter. That's not what we're looking at you for. That's
Yeah, because that's not what men want. When men say, what do you bring to the table? They're not asking you to bring money because they know you already expect them to make money and to provide no matter how much money you make. Even women who make millions of dollars want men who are going to pay their bills. Men already know that. That's not even a question. When men say, what do you bring to the table? They're expecting you to say, I'll be able to clean. I'll be able to cook for the family. I'll be able to nurture the kids. I'll be able to be, I bring peace, I can motivate you, encouragement, be someone you can rely on. Okay, sure, you're going to provide, but if you can't make it, I can chime in. Those are the things men are saying. They're not saying bring your degrees because they know they're going to be the sole providers.
not what's important. Why is it only important when a man has it? It should be just as important for a little girl to be able to aspire and see herself on the television and see herself in politics and see herself in tech as it is for a young Black boy to see himself in all of those spaces. We should not do what I believe other cultures do to us, which is move the goalpost once we have achieved something. If another culture shouldn't do that to a Black man, why should a Black man do that to a Black woman? Thank you.
Okay, so my opinions are not very popular, especially among women. Um, I feel like it's a generational thing for me because I'm Gen X, so I look at things completely different. I don't feel like I think women put a lot of focus on their careers and education and all those things, and I think that's a beautiful thing if that's what you want to do. But I think they're doing it for themselves. And then they wait till later in life to try to have children. And I have friends now that have doctorates and they waited so late to have children. Now they can't have children and they're very upset about it. And I think that it's okay if you want to be career driven. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't hear me say that. But I think it needs to be balanced. Like, still, if you want to be a mother or a wife, some people don't want to be a mother or wife, but if you want to be a mother or wife, you need to start looking into that sooner than in your 40s, because it's a very selfish thing to want to become a mother at 40 when your quality of life is different. You're not going to want to chase behind children that late in life. You think you will, but you won't. You have to be a mother to know that. And you know, I know, ladies, I don't know how you feel about this, but men really don't care about your degrees and stuff, because it's a lot of women that say, I'm educated, I'm beautiful, I got a nice body, all this stuff, and he go and choose this woman over me. And men are really choosing the woman that bring them peace, right? And I'm not a pick me. I know women, soon as you say something that's contrary to what women believe, they call you a pick me. But that's
Yeah, they're gonna call you a pick me mama. The moment you say anything positive about men, or the moment you say anything that shows you understand what men want from women, they're gonna call you a pick me. Unfortunately, mama, thank you for at least understanding what men are saying or men want from women, but other women are gonna call you a pick me. Because what you said is absolutely spot on. Like, women go to these colleges and get all these careers to make money for themselves. They don't do it for men. They do it to be independent. Independent of who? Independent of men. So at the end of the day, they do all these degrees, get all this money, and then at 45, they think God is just gonna put a husband in their laps. Yet even when they get all this money, they still want the Prince Charming God is gonna give them to pay for all the bills. So it's like, so you made all this money, but you want the man to still pay for your bills? So it doesn't make sense.
not what I am. I'm just a realist. And I understand that our education is important, but it's mostly important to us. It's not important to other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you do, do for you. It's not for the man. It's not for, any of that stuff. That's what you do for yourself. And I'll expound on that later as we go into the conversation, but I'll land right there.
When she was talking, she didn't say like, "Oh, us ladies, we're waiting later to get married and start families." She said, we're having our babies at 40 and bringing them into not legacy." She said something about not deficit, but the other word, I don't know. But anyway, she said we're bringing them into something good instead of bringing them into deficit. Where did the men come in? She didn't talk anything about men. She's talking about Black women's only, as if Black women's are the entire community. But when it comes to having children later, I think it is a good thing that people are having their children a little bit later. But 40 is way too late to start having children. If you're blessed to have many children throughout your 20s, 30s, and you end up having more babies in your 40s, that's one thing. But starting your family at 40 is a huge risk. You don't even know if you're going to have proper children. And then you're starting at that age. You only have like 1 or 2 years in your 40s that you can. It's silly. It's very silly. But anyway, the other thing is the Lashia, she said that, what did she say? She said so much. She said something about, hold on. I'm trying to remember. She said it was good. And why do women kind of get put down for doing the same thing men do? Why is it good when men do it, but it's seen as a negative when women do it? The reason why that conversation is so detrimental is because when men were asking women about this table thing, they only said that when women said that they were equal. Because men never really expected women to show up as men. Men expected women to show up as women. And when women heard, what do you bring to the table? What makes you equal? They started listing off masculine things that made them equal to the men.
Yeah, the whole what do you bring to the table, honestly, she's right. Men didn't start asking what you bring to the table until women said they're equal to men. Until women said they don't need no man for nothing. Until they said, they can do anything a man can do. So men are like, oh, so you're equal to me? Okay. I bring my money. I bring this. What are you bringing? And then women take offense. Any man who asks a woman, what do you bring to the table? You're lucky if you don't get slapped by the woman, because they don't like that question. And then they think when a man asks what do you bring to the table, they think he's talking about money. No, he's asking, okay, my role is to provide. What are you going to bring? I'm going to provide. What are you going to do? Because most of them, let's be honest, don't know how to cook because they're not taught how to cook. They don't know how to clean because they were not taught how to clean. They don't know what being peace to a man is because all they watch is the love and hip hop. and Cardi B and Sexy Red and being ratchet, if we're gonna be honest. So what do you guys think about that? Link down below to the beef. Till next time.